I pulled into my driveway, just after 7:30 p.m. Bone tired, from the last 4 days I'd spent in Kamloops after my mother's surgery took a sudden turn. I wasn't supposed to be home until tomorrow morning, but the hospital called saying she was stable enough that I didn't have to stay overnight. I grabbed the earliest flight back to Vancouver. I should have felt relieved, grateful even, but the entire drive from the airport, I had this strange, gnawing ache in my chest. All I wanted was to walk into my house, see my wife, Elena, curled up on the couch, and fall asleep beside her. Instead, when I unlocked the front door, I was greeted by a darkness that felt wrong. Not everyone's asleep darkness. Not lights accidentally left off darkness. Wrong. The house was silent, in a way houses shouldn't be silent. No TV humming softly in the background. No dishwasher running. No footsteps upstairs. No faint scent of dinner, or candles, or Elena's lavender lotion she used every night. Just stillness. Heavy, unnatural stillness. I set my bag down quietly, almost afraid that making too much noise would disturb something I didn't want to disturb. Elena? My voice sounded strange in the quiet. Hollow. I took a few steps toward the kitchen, and that was when I heard it. Faint, at first, like something brushing against a wall. A soft thumping, irregular, but persistent. Then a muffled sound behind it, like someone crying with something pressed over their mouth. I froze, completely froze. Every hair on my arm stood up. The sound came again. Thump. A shaky breath. A whimper. The back of the house. The laundry room. My heart started pounding so violently I thought I might pass out. Elena? I said again. Louder now. Fear slicing straight through my exhaustion. No answer. Just that horrible, desperate sound. I moved quickly, stumbling over my own feet as I rushed through the hallway, flicking on lights as I went. The laundry room door was closed. That wasn't unusual. But the noise was definitely coming from behind it. I grabbed the handle and twisted. It didn't move. I tried again. Harder. Nothing. Locked. From the outside. That was the moment my stomach dropped. Something was terribly, impossibly wrong. I stared at the doorknob, my mind refusing to process what I was seeing. There was a latch, one I had never installed, attached to the outside frame of the laundry room door. A cheap metal slide bolt, screwed in like an afterthought, but unmistakably placed there to keep someone inside. The thumping grew louder when I touched the handle. A frantic, terrified pounding. Then a voice. Faint, weak, cracked. Tom, please. My knees nearly buckled. That was Elena. She sounded like she'd been crying for hours, maybe days. Elena, I'm right here. I yanked at the latch, but it wouldn't budge. Whoever installed it had tightened it so hard, the screws were bent deep into the wood. I ran to the kitchen, nearly slipping on the hardwood, and ripped open the junk drawer until I found a screwdriver. My hands shook so violently, I dropped it twice before I made it back. Hold on, sweetheart. I'm getting you out. No answer. Just a desperate scraping sound, like she'd slid herself closer to the door. I shoved the screwdriver under the latch and pried with everything I had. The metal groaned, resisted, then suddenly snapped free, sending me stumbling backward. I grabbed the handle and threw the door open. The smell hit me first. Sweat, fear, stale air, and beneath it, something sour, something that made my throat tighten. The room was dark, except for the hallway light spilling in behind me. Elena was on the floor, pressed against the wall, curled in on herself like she was trying to disappear into the tile. Her hair was matted to her face, her clothes twisted and damp, her skin pale and almost gray. When her eyes lifted to mine, there was a moment, just one terrible moment, where she didn't seem to recognize me. Then she let out this broken sound, half sob, half gasp, and tried to stand. Her legs buckled. I caught her before she hit the floor. She felt weightless. Too weightless. Dehydrated. Trembling. Her fingers digging into my shirt like she was afraid I'd disappear if she let go. "Tom," she whispered. Her voice cracked. He locked me in. Liam. Liam. Our son. The son I trusted. The son I left here, thinking he would help her, while I was caring for my mother. The room started to spin, but I held her tighter. "You're safe," I whispered. Even though I wasn't sure anymore. "I've got you. I'm here." But my mind was already shattering with one thought. One impossible, horrifying thought. Why would our son do this? Elena was shaking so hard I could feel it through my shirt. Her fingers clawed at my arm. Not intentionally, just instinctively. Like she was terrified I might disappear if she loosened her grip for even a second. I carried her to the couch, her body limp and frighteningly light. She tried to sit up, tried to say something, but her lips were cracked, her voice barely more than a whisper. "Slow down," I told her softly, brushing the hair from her face. "You're okay now. I'm here." But she wasn't okay. She was trembling, incoherent. Her eyes darting around the living room, like she expected someone to jump out of the shadows. "He locked me," she whispered, every word sounding like it scraped her throat raw. "Who?" I asked, though I already knew. Some part of me already knew. "Who did this to you?" Her gaze met mine, and for a moment, I saw pure terror. Not confusion, not exhaustion. Terror. "Liam," she breathed. "He locked me in. Liam. Our son." My mouth went dry. I felt something inside me twist so violently it was like my ribs were being crushed from the inside. Liam. My son. Our only child. 28 years old. The son who had moved back into our basement suite 3 months ago after losing his job, after some misunderstandings with his employer, after swearing he just needed time to get back on his feet. The son I left here to look after his mother while I was at the hospital with mine. "No," I whispered, shaking my head, instinctively. Absurdly. Like I could just deny reality back into place. "Elena, sweetheart. That can't," he wouldn't. But she only shook her head, barely able to keep her eyes open. "He wanted money." I said no. He got so angry. Her voice dissolved into a hollow sob, her entire body trembling. I didn't understand. Not fully. But I didn't need to. Not yet. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands. "I'm calling 911, I said, already dialing. "Just stay with me. Please. Stay with me." As the dispatcher answered, my eyes drifted down the hallway toward the basement door, toward the place my son had been living. And for the first time in my life, I felt afraid of him. The paramedics arrived within minutes. Though to me, it felt like an hour. 2 of them, a young woman with a steady voice and an older man with a calm, practiced expression, immediately moved toward Elena with medical bags in hand. I stepped aside, but hovered close, unable to pull myself away. They checked her blood pressure, her pulse, her pupils. The older medic frowned as he lifted her arm, revealing faint purple bruising along her wrist. "How long has she been like this?" he asked. His tone wasn't accusatory, just clinical. But the question punched straight through my chest. "I don't know," I admitted. "I just got home." She was locked in the laundry room. The female medic shot me a sharp glance, then exchanged a look with her partner. "Locked in?" she repeated. Before I could explain, the front door opened again, and 2 police officers stepped inside, a constable and a sergeant. Their presence made everything feel suddenly, brutally real. The sergeant approached me. "Sir, we were told there may have been unlawful confinement. Can you walk me through what happened?" My mouth was dry. My voice felt foreign. My mother was hospitalized. I've been out of town. Our son Liam was staying here with my wife. When I got home, she was locked inside the laundry room. The door was bolted from the outside. She's dehydrated, confused. She said, Liam did it. The sergeant wrote quickly, nodding but not reacting. He'd probably heard 1,000 variations of stories like this. But to me, speaking the words out loud felt like tearing open my own chest. One of the paramedics interrupted softly. Sir, she's severely dehydrated. Signs of emotional distress, bruising, consistent with restraint, or being grabbed. She needs to go to the hospital immediately. Elena's eyes fluttered open at that. Days, she whispered. The medic leaned closer. What was that? Days, Elena repeated, her voice barely audible. Locked. Days. Everything inside me stopped. Days. She had been locked in that room for days, while I was hours away, thinking she was safe, thinking Liam had everything under control. My legs felt weak. My vision blurred for a moment. The sergeant closed his notebook slowly. Sir, he said carefully, we're going to need to locate your son. And in that instant, I realized something terrible. I didn't know where he was. I didn't know what he'd been doing. I didn't know who my son had become. After the ambulance pulled away, sirens fading into the quiet of the neighborhood, I stood alone in my living room. The imprint of Elena's weight still lingering on my arms. The officers were outside speaking quietly by their cruiser, giving me a moment. I wished they hadn't. I wished anyone would tell me what to do next. But instead, I was left with a silence, so thick, it felt like the whole house was holding its breath. I walked through the hallway slowly, turning on lights, one by one. With each step, something new felt wrong. The living room throw pillows were stacked in a pile on the floor. A lamp was unplugged and pushed behind the couch. 2 kitchen drawers were left open. Little things, but wrong things. The kind of things Elena would never leave scattered. The kind of things Liam never bothered with at all. I moved toward my office next, dread coiling in my stomach. The door was halfway open. I hadn't left it that way. I flicked on the light and felt my heart drop into my stomach. My computer, the one I used for work, finances, everything was on. But the screen was black, with a blinking cursor. My desktop icons, my files, my folders gone, completely wiped. I checked the recycle bin, the external drive empty. The drawers to my filing cabinet were slightly ajar. I pulled one open. Papers disturbed. Tax files shuffled. Bank statements missing. I felt a cold sweat break out along my back. I rushed to the kitchen and grabbed Elena's purse, where it sat under the coat rack. I dumped it on the dining table. Lipstick, tissues, a receipt, but no wallet, no credit cards, no ID, no house keys, all gone. My breathing grew shallow. This wasn't random. This wasn't some confused mistake, or a misunderstanding, or a moment of anger that spiraled too far. My son had gone through our things, taken what he wanted, wiped what he didn't. I walked back toward the laundry room, staring at the jagged screws sticking out from the frame where the latch had been ripped off. The cheap metal strip still lay on the floor. I stared at it like it might explain itself. But it didn't. Nothing did. All I knew was this. My wife hadn't been hurt by accident, and Liam had done something far more terrifying than I had ever imagined possible. I called Liam the moment I stepped into the hallway. No answer. I called again. Straight to voicemail. I called a third time, forcing myself to stay steady, to keep my voice from shaking when I said, Liam, call me back. Now. This is serious. Nothing. One of the officers, Sergeant Halvorsen, stepped back inside just as I was trying for the 4th time. Any contact? He asked. He's not picking up. He's never this unreachable. Halvorsen exchanged a look with his partner. Given the circumstances, we're filing a locate request. It's technically not a missing person case yet, but with the allegation of unlawful confinement, finding him becomes a priority. A priority. My son was now a priority for police to locate. I felt the room tilt slightly. The officers spread out, asking basic questions, recent behavior, where Liam might go, who he might contact. I didn't have answers. Not real ones. I'd spent months telling myself, Liam was just struggling, just in a rough patch, just stressed. But now, when it mattered, I realized I had no idea what his days looked like, who he talked to, what he did when he left the house. The neighbors filled in what I couldn't. Mrs. Randall next door said she'd seen Liam leaving late at night with two men she didn't recognize. Hoodies, backpacks. Never talking. Always looking around like they were paranoid about something. The college kid across the street mentioned a loud argument a few nights ago. Something about debts and getting the money soon. A homeowner, 3 houses down, said Liam had tried to sell him electronics, random, cheap electronics, but then backed off when asked where he got them. Each piece made my stomach sink further. Each story sounded less like a troubled young man and more like someone spiraling into something darker. Someone desperate. Someone dangerous. Someone I didn't recognize. Halvorsen closed his notebook, his expression tight. We'll put out an alert to patrol units. If he uses any of your wife's cards or tries to access your accounts, we'll be notified. In the meantime, stay reachable. I nodded, staring down at my phone. Liam still hadn't called. Not a text. Not a missed call. Not even a read receipt. For the first time since he was born, I realized something that terrified me more than anything else that had happened today. I didn't know where my son was, and I didn't know who he had become. By the time I reached the hospital, Elena was in a private room, an IV feeding her fluids, her skin no longer as gray but still frighteningly pale. A nurse was adjusting the monitors when I stepped inside. She's stable, the nurse said gently. Weak, dehydrated, but stable. She'll be able to talk soon. I nodded, though my chest tightened with dread. Because I already knew whatever she was going to tell me, I wasn't ready for it. When the nurse left, I sat beside Elena and took her hand. Her fingers twitched slightly, then curled around mine like a child clinging to something familiar. After a while, her eyes opened. She focused on me slowly, like she had to fight through layers of fog to get there. Tom, she whispered. You're here. I'm here, I said softly. You're safe now. She swallowed hard, her lips trembling. I tried to call you. I know, I whispered. Tell me what happened. Her gaze drifted toward the window, as if replaying it all. He was different, she said. Liam. He was so tense, angry, pacing around the house, talking to someone on the phone in the basement, whispering, sometimes yelling. My stomach tightened. She took a slow breath. He came upstairs 2 nights ago asking for money. He said he owed someone. He said he was in trouble, and he needed it now. What kind of trouble? I asked, but she just shook her head. He wouldn't say. He wanted your bank card, your passwords, all of it. I told him no, Tom. I told him we didn't have that kind of money just sitting around. And then, her voice cracked. He snapped. Her breath grew shaky as she continued. He grabbed my arm. He shoved me. I fell. And then he kept saying I didn't understand, that he didn't have a choice, that he needed time to figure things out. Tears spilled down her face. He dragged me to the laundry room. I tried to fight him, but she covered her face with her hands. He locked me in. He slid something heavy in front of the door. I heard him moving things, going through drawers, and then he left, and he didn't come back. I pulled her into me. Her whole body shook. "I'm so sorry," she cried. But she had nothing to apologize for. Nothing. "We'll find him," I said, though part of me wasn't sure if I wanted answers or if I feared what the truth would cost us. The next morning, 2 detectives, Halvorsen and a younger officer named Patel, met me back at the house. Elena was still at the hospital, resting. I wasn't sure if I wanted to be here alone, but the detectives insisted I walk them through everything Liam might have touched. We started with the basement. I hadn't been down there much since Liam moved back in. I didn't want to pry. I thought giving him space was the right thing to do. God, how wrong I'd been. The moment we stepped into the basement suite, the air changed. Stale. Heavy. Like someone had been living in panic. Clothes were strewn across the floor. An unmade mattress sat in the corner. Empty food containers piled on the desk. But what caught my eye first were the papers, dozens of them scattered across the coffee table. "Withdrawal slips," Officer Patel said, picking one up. "Looks like multiple banks." My throat tightened. I looked closer. Small amounts. $40, $80, $150. Repeatedly. Like someone draining every possible account he could access. Beside them were pawnshop receipts, jewelry, electronics, tools. Not ours. At least, not all of it. Then, the drug paraphernalia. A burnt spoon. A lighter. A small plastic bag with residue. I stared at it in disbelief, bile rising in my throat. Halvorsen knelt by the desk. "Sir, you should see this." He held up a spiral notebook. No, several, stacked beneath it. Inside were pages filled with erratic handwriting, scribbles, violent fantasies, rambling plans that made no sense. Paranoia dripping off every line. My son's handwriting. Then the worst part, Liam's laptop. Patel powered it on. Most of it was wiped, but one message popped up. A text thread from an unsaved contact. "Where's the money? You said you'd have it. If you don't deliver, you know what happens." Halvorsen exhaled slowly. "He's in deep with someone dangerous." I felt the room tilt. The floor seemed to shift under me. "So, what does this mean?" I whispered. Halvorsen closed the laptop, his expression grim. "It means your son wasn't acting alone. And if he doesn't get them what they want, they'll come looking." And just like that, I realized this nightmare wasn't over. It was only beginning. They found Liam 3 days later. I was sitting in Elena's hospital room, holding her hand as she drifted in and out of sleep, when my phone buzzed with a text from Sergeant Halvorsen. "We've located your son. Arrest in progress." I didn't breathe for several seconds. Didn't move. Couldn't. A few minutes later, the TV in the hospital waiting room flickered with a breaking news report. The headline punched me in the throat. "Local man arrested in credit card theft and unlawful confinement investigation." And then I saw him. My son. My Liam. Standing outside a dingy motel off Main Street, surrounded by flashing red and blue lights. His hair wild. His clothes wrinkled and dirty. One shoe missing. He looked nothing like the boy I'd raised. Nothing like the young man who used to help Elena decorate the Christmas tree, or who cried when our old dog died. He was disoriented, stumbling as officers held him upright. His hands were shaking so violently it looked like he might collapse. When one officer reached for his arm, Liam jerked back, shouting something incoherent. Then the audio cut in. "I never meant to hurt anyone," he yelled. "They don't get it. I didn't have a choice. They owe me. My parents owe me." My stomach twisted so hard, I had to grip the back of a chair to stay standing. Owe him? For what? For raising him? For feeding him? For giving him a place to live when he lost everything? Reporters swarmed as the officers pulled him toward the cruiser. Liam's face contorted rage, terror, confusion, all battling at once. "Tell them!" he screamed at no one. "Tell them I had to! I had to!" They pushed his head down gently and guided him into the back seat. The cuffs glinted under the lights. And there he was, my son. My little boy handcuffed, trembling, wild-eyed. The news anchor continued speaking, but her voice blurred into static. All I could see was that image. All I could feel was this crushing weight pressing into my chest, making it hard to breathe. My son wasn't missing anymore. He was found. And suddenly, I wished he hadn't been found like this, because now, the truth was real. And in that moment, it felt unbearable. The detectives called me in the next day. Elena was stable enough for me to leave her for a couple of hours, though I hated stepping away. But they said they had answers I needed to hear. When I sat down in the small interview room, Halverson looked more exhausted than I'd ever seen him. He folded his hands. "Liam talked," he said. "A lot." He slid a file across the table. Photos. Screenshots. Bank logs. Notes. My throat tightened. "He fell into debt months ago," Halverson explained. "Significant debt. With what appears to be a predatory group involved in drug sales and loan sharking. Every time he delayed payment, the debt doubled. I felt sick. Literally, sick. My son had gotten tangled in something I didn't even know existed in our world. He told us he tried selling possessions his own at first, then eventually items from the house. But it wasn't enough." Halverson took a breath. "He said he needed money fast. And he believed you had it." "We don't," I muttered. "We never have." "He didn't care," Halvorsen said. "He was desperate. He became convinced that if he just got access to your accounts, he could pay off the debt and walk away." He opened the file again, tapping a highlighted line. "This is where it escalated. He asked your wife for the passwords. She refused. He panicked. He snapped. My hands shook beneath the table. He told us he didn't want to hurt her. He said he only meant to keep her out of the way until he could get into the accounts. He said she left him no choice. No choice. As though imprisoning his own mother was logical. He planned," Halverson continued, "to disappear once he transferred the money. New phone, new location, cut ties. He was going to leave us," I whispered. Halverson nodded. "He was convinced these men would kill him if he stayed. And he told us he cared more about saving himself than the consequences." I closed my eyes. The weight of it all crushed down on me. Liam hadn't made a mistake. He hadn't acted in confusion. He had made a plan, a choice, and that choice nearly killed his mother. I opened my eyes again, but nothing in the room looked the same. Nothing in my life did. Because the truth was out now, and it was worse than anything I had imagined. The courthouse smelled like old paper and stale coffee, the kind of place where time feels slower, heavier. Elena sat beside me in her wheelchair. Wrapped in a soft blue blanket the nurse insisted she bring. Her hands trembled in her lap. She hadn't said much all morning, just quiet breaths, quiet tears. Liam was led in by 2 officers. His hair was trimmed now, his clothes clean. But nothing could hide the hollow look in his eyes, or the way he avoided ours. The charges were read aloud. Unlawful confinement, elder abuse, theft and fraud, assault causing bodily harm. Each charge felt like another blow to my ribs. These weren't random accusations. These were acts my son committed. Hearing them listed, one after another, made something inside me cave in. When the Crown Attorney asked if I wanted to deliver a victim impact statement, my legs nearly buckled as I stood. I hadn't planned to speak, but I realized no one else could explain what he had taken from us, not just money or safety, but trust. I stared at the paper in my hands, the one I'd written at 3 a.m., when the weight of everything felt too heavy to sleep. "My son," I began, my voice thin. locked my wife, his mother, in a room where she could have died. She begged him to let her out. He walked away. Liam flinched. Just barely. We loved him, I continued. We gave him everything we could. And we would have helped him if he'd asked. But instead, he chose to hurt the one person who always defended him. My voice cracked, but I forced myself to continue. I don't know if I can ever understand why, or if I will ever forgive it, but I hope he becomes someone different than the man who did this. I sat down. Elena wiped her cheeks, staring at the floor. Liam didn't look at us once. When the judge delivered the sentence, 7 years in federal custody, with mandatory drug rehabilitation and psychological evaluation, there was no gasp, no outburst, just silence. Heavy, aching silence. Elena cried quietly beside me, and I realized something painful. Justice doesn't feel like victory. It feels like loss. Life didn't go back to normal. It couldn't. You don't return to the life you had before your child betrays you. You build something new out of the pieces. Slowly. Carefully. Some days, Elena seems like herself again. Soft, warm, humming in the kitchen while making tea. Other days, she jumps at the sound of a door closing too quickly. Once, I found her frozen in the hallway, staring at the laundry room door with terror in her eyes. She whispered, "Lock?" Even though the latch was gone, the frame repaired. We talk through it, breathe through it, but the fear lingers like a shadow behind her. Money is tight now. Legal fees, hospital bills, repairs to the house, it all adds up. But we manage. We always have. The financial hit hurts, but not as deeply as the emotional one. Late at night, when Elena is sleeping, I sit in the living room and let myself think about Liam. The boy, he was curious, gentle, always laughing. And the man, he became secretive, desperate, angry, dangerous. And somewhere between those two people is the son I thought I knew. I keep wondering when I stopped seeing him clearly. When the warning signs shifted from, "He's struggling," to, "He's drowning," and I failed to notice. Guilt is a quiet thing. It doesn't shout. It settles. It seeps. It waits. We get occasional updates from the correctional facility. Liam is in treatment. He's withdrawn. Cooperative, they say. Not violent. I don't know if that comforts me or makes the wound ache more. Some nights, I still hear Elena crying softly beside me. Not sobbing, just letting out the grief she can't put into words. I hold her hand, and we lie there in the dark. Two people trying to navigate a world that suddenly feels unfamiliar. People ask if we'll visit him when he becomes eligible. I don't have an answer yet. Maybe we will. Maybe we won't. Some wounds are too deep for easy decisions. What I do know is this. Betrayal from a stranger hurts. Betrayal from family wounds. But betrayal from your own child, it changes you forever. Healing will come in small moments, in tiny breaths, but it will never erase what happened. It will simply make it bearable. And for now, bearable is enough. This story was intense, but this story on the right-hand side is even more insane.